you're out there, you're riding, you're having a good time, and taking in the outdoors.
The fight isn't over. The fight is just beginning.
What's going on, guys? This is Carl with the Racer Red channel. This is the 2022 Sand City 100. This is right at the pit stop for lap 1 going into lap 2. So I'm halfway through the race right here. I've already broken the GoPro lens, which happens just about every race. And I am having a blast up to this point. I think I went about 25 miles, which is about half of the first lap.
Thank you.
A good solid 25 miles at a good pace. Everything beyond that is going to be much, much slower. So I continue to have issues with longevity through these races, which is pretty normal for me. Lap 2 was much more difficult. A lot of this terrain just became really chewed up, and the silt became even deeper, and the ruts became deeper, and a lot of these straights, you can't really see it in the video. In fact, I couldn't see it in real life either, because the sun was beating down and a lot of the terrain was just blown out with light. But a lot of the ruts on lap 2 were pretty hard to spot, so you had to be really careful not to get cross-rutted when you're riding through the silt especially, and you really had to read the terrain the best you could. In fact, on lap 2, for the most part, I was just making sure that I was paying attention to my body. I was riding in a gear too high for a lot of it, just to ease a lot of the torque on my arms and my legs and my back, and just I was trying to be as easy on my body as possible, and that way I could keep a good pace throughout the whole race. So on lap 2, I was really trying to just keep my momentum and keep the RPMs down and just ride through some of the corners at a lower RPM. That way it's not tugging on my arms so much. And wherever I could, I was sitting instead of standing. I was doing a lot of things, a lot of little adjustments on lap 2 in order to make sure that I could make it through the entire race. It was really good course. I really enjoyed it. In years past, this course has been known for non-stop whoops and just brutal, body brutalizing whoops that just demolish you and kill your will to keep riding. But this year, actually, it wasn't bad at all. I really enjoyed this race. This is a really nice course setup. They had some good technical terrain mixed in, and good rocky sections, a lot of single track, good sand washes. They had it all on this race. Everything was well marked, and although it is well marked, you have to still be careful. As I learned in my last race, you still have to be careful, especially once you're getting tired. I was really cognizant of that when I was going through lap 2. I just didn't want to get off course, and I didn't want to wreck. So consistency was my main focus, especially for lap 2. I was really forcing my brain into overdrive and really focusing and making sure that I was making good choices on lap 2. There's especially on sections where it was very refined motor functions, very fine motor functions, like making little small adjustments to the bike in order to stay on course and to miss a little pebble or rock that would have normally thrown me sideways. There's little things like that where I was like, okay, brain, just focus on the course. It's really tough because your physical ability really depletes quickly in these races. It's similar to, I would equate it to running a marathon while lifting weights. It requires a lot of strength, and that's why these bikes, like I mentioned, how I'm trying to keep it a gear high and trying to ease the throttle on instead of kill my arms with a lot of horsepower. On this lap 2, I was really trying to reduce that impact on my body, because I knew that every time I was feeling that force against me, it wasn't going well. My body was just starting to fail on me, so I really wanted to make sure that I could make it all the way to the end. And that's what these desert races really are doing, is they are really just wearing your body down, even though, you know, sometimes it feels like you can go forever on lap one. Like if you're 20 miles into the race, sometimes it just feels like, oh, I can do this forever. But then 10 miles later, you could just be totally blown out. You could have hit a whoop section, and that's all it takes. It takes one whoop section that is half a mile long or a quarter mile long, and after you get done with that, your arms are blown out, your legs are blown out, and you're reduced to the point where you just can't even stand up off the bike. So it's really important to view these races through the lens of, okay, it's survival first, and secondary is maintaining my body to where I can keep a good pace and keep that consistency going, because I'm in it for 100 miles. I'm not in it for the first 20. So although it is very important to get a good start, which my bike doesn't like to start, so I've got to improvise with that a little bit. However, after the start, you want to go as fast as you can to make those passes, because you have an opportunity for the first, I would say, 10 miles to make solid passes. You can make a lot of passes during that time, and so it's worth expending a little bit of energy to do that, in my opinion. But beyond that first 10 miles, after that, you want to start thinking about, okay, what am I using right now? And how is my body going to feel 50 miles from now? Because these races are lasting 3+ hours for most of us, unless you're the guy up front who's doing it in a 2.5 mile or 2.5 hour range. I think that you really have to start thinking about that stuff. But here you can see I'm doing a sand wash, and these sand washes are actually something that I was looking forward to, because they allowed me to sit down on the bike quite a bit, the smooth sections anyways. Whenever there was a smooth section of the sand wash, it would allow me to sit down, and so nice. But on some of these sections I would hit top speed, which is approximately 80 miles per hour, somewhere around there. I cocked my bike at 80 with shorter gearing, so I imagine it'll do about 85 miles per hour now. So it's one tooth higher on the counter shaft, so I think that's what it'll do, is about 85. So at 85 miles per hour, you do not want to get cross-rutted and faceplant. That's a pretty deadly speed, so you really have to be careful, and the steering stabilizer really helps out with that. So I've got good suspension up front and a good stabilizer. This is the first race that I've done this year with a good, solid, straight front end on the bike. This is a 2017 model, and for my class, which is the A class, it's really, really rare for somebody to be riding a bike that is as old as mine. Mine's a 5-year-old bike, and it's sometimes hard to keep it going. It doesn't like to start. We keep it really, in my opinion, we're keeping up on it really well, but there's no getting away from the fact that it's still a 5-year-old bike. Most of these guys are on 2022 models, and they're riding just brand new stuff with no issues. Whereas, you know, at the beginning of the year, I was riding a bike that was all bent up. My bars were bent, my stabilizer was bent, everything up front was all sideways. The front wheel was out of true. It was pretty messed up because I had hit that tree straight on during that race in Washington last year, and it pretty much did in my front end, so it didn't do it any favors for sure. So this is really the first race I've ridden where the front end of the bike feels stable and it's going where I want it to go, which is a huge deal. Another thing, when you're riding around the sagebrush, there are certain sections where it will cover the ground, and That gets a little bit sketchy sometimes when people haven't gone through there enough. You just have to ride through the sagebrush and hope for the best. Hopefully there's no rock in there. And you can see I'm doing a pretty good speed through here, and if you were to hit a rock, that would just end your day and possibly end your racing forever. So you definitely don't want to be hitting any rocks. The main thing you want to steer clear of in a desert race is probably a rock, and that's why you don't want to go off course too far either. Here I'm hitting another checkpoint and trying not to blast these guys with dust. They're out there just volunteering all day, and they don't need you roosting the crap out of them every time. So I try to at least pull away, catching the best traction I can, and then once I get up top here, I'd start increasing RPM. Because you really are, these 450s just, they have a rooster tail shooting off the back of them that is pretty deadly. During the passes I make, I'm getting pelted with little marbles that are, basically my whole front is bruised up after every race. And I'm wearing pretty good padding too, so when I'm passing people, I'm just getting completely pelted. These blue flags mean there's a warning. You definitely want to slow down for those and watch for the danger. Those are a danger warning. And right there, it was just completely it was silted in ruts that were, they had a lot of dips and crevices in there that were really dangerous. You really had to watch your line through there. And on this course, there were some dangers that you had to really pay attention to. If you hit them at full speed, there were some that went down a ravine into a V at the bottom, and you had to be pretty on the ball there as far as how you hit those, because if you didn't hit them right, you'd be SOL. You'd be hurting pretty bad. So there was a couple times where I bottomed pretty hard against those. So any whoop sections through here are just pretty brutal at this point of the race. This late in the race, I'm just hoping I can avoid any whoops at all. I don't really want to be working my legs that much. And these desert races, like I said, it's like running a marathon while lifting weights. I mean, you're squatting the entire time, and when you're hitting those whoops, your legs are your primary suspension system, so you are working the bike up and down, and you're working your legs up and down, and you're absorbing all that impact with your legs. So your legs are a very important part of riding, especially in these races. So here I'm topping out the bike again, doing about 80, 85, somewhere in there. And of course I could be doing less than that because of this terrain being so loose. I could be maybe doing 75 or so, but I have GPS'd my bike on roads before with lower gearing than this, and it would do 80. So I imagine I am doing about 80 at least. So on a lot of these sand washes, you can just be flying, and of course here's some more whoops that are just killing me. I remember this section; it was bad. But anyways, those sand washes, you can be flying along, and I can only see what you guys can see. So a lot of the time, you don't know if that sand wash is just going to do a 90-degree turn, which a couple of them did do a 90-degree turn. And when you're doing 80 miles an hour down a sand wash and it does a 90-degree turn, you have to really put some effort into making that turn. So I was very careful, and I knew there were a couple of those turns on lap 2 because I had already done a lap, but I was really watching for them because I knew there were a couple of them, and I almost blew through them on lap 1, so I wanted to be careful with that on lap 2 especially. Like I said, I mean, not only is my body all beat up during this part of the race, but my mind is as well. I'm starting to lose focus, and it's hard to really make those good decisions and make those fine movements and keep myself from really crashing into rocks. And that's one of the main things I'm trying to stay clear of, especially in this section of the race. This was a really loose, technical, hard section of the race where I would be blasting through here if I was fresh, but I'm not fresh. And I was really struggling to stay in control and impose my will on the bike as opposed to the bike imposing its will on me. And usually when that happens, it wants to face plant into some rocks. But here you can see those fine movements of the front tire. I don't want to hit any of these little rocks, so I'm swerving back and forth. You can see those fine movements. And pretty soon coming up, you'll see me almost face plant. And basically what's happening here is I'm starting to sit down too much, and I'm dropping my elbows, and I'm reducing the leverage on the bike. Here it is. I almost face planted straight into that gigantic boulder right there. And so when you drop your elbows and you sit down on the bike, for one, it uses a lot of the same concepts as, there's probably not a lot of people on this channel that have rolled jiu-jitsu, but I've done lots of jiu-jitsu, and basically it's the same concept. You're wanting to increase your leverage on the bike and increase your balance and stay in balance while increasing your leverage. So in a situation where you have dropped your elbows, you've compromised your leverage completely. And when you're sitting on the bike, you've compromised your balance completely. And when the bike moves, you're going to move. And unfortunately, my elbows are down and I'm sitting down. I'm just completely exhausted. So not only is my leverage gone with my elbows down, I start hitting these rocks and it really affects me. And then I go where the bike goes because I am sitting. So it's definitely, it's not ideal, but it's survival. At this point of the race, it becomes survival. And I'm just trying to get through it at this point. And I know there are some marathon runner type guys that are just going as fast as they can still. And I'm not a marathon runner body style or body shape. I'm definitely needing to be if I'm going to be doing high speeds throughout the course. Yeah, I've never been real thin. I've always done a lot of strength training, and that's actually one of the things that's detrimental to me that I still do is a lot of strength training, and I need to stop that because my arms are needing to be smaller, and I just need to be. The name of the game is to be small and to be a marathon running body type. Mountain biking is a huge tool, jogging is a huge tool, and the row machine is where it's at. So those things are really good for you as far as training for these types of races. Again, I can't reiterate enough how important it is to be in good shape, because you can be a pretty low-level rider, like a C rider, but if you can go as fast as you can throughout the entire 100 miles, you will probably be a good B-level finisher. And that's another thing. I mean, if I was racing my class, my age class, because I'm over 30, I would have dominated this race. I would have gotten first by a long shot. And but I don't believe in that. And I know I might hurt some feelings here, but that's just how I feel. I don't think there should be age classes other than if you're over 45 or 50 maybe. But for me, I think anything under 45 is just silly. I mean, look at Graham Jarvis. He's 46. He got third in the world, basically, against the best guys on the planet, and he's getting third. So, and sometimes he still gets first. I mean, he's an awesome rider, and he's up there in age. This is my second run at this hill. The first lap, I actually hit a rock and it threw me sideways at the base, and it really screwed up my momentum. This time I knew which line to take, so I just remembered, and easy peasy, just flew right up it. I knew where to stay on that hill to avoid most of the big rocks. Yeah, that first lap it didn't go well. I thought it was going to go well, but I hit a rock, and sometimes it really messes you up. But as I was saying, and when I talk about this stuff, I think a lot of times I'm going to hurt some feelings, but that's going to be the case anytime you express any kind of opinion, I guess. But I really do believe that the races should be basically A, B, and C class. That's it. And anything beyond that, maybe really older people like 45 or more, 50, 60. But other than that, there shouldn't be age classes like there are. So there was a yellow flag right there. You're not supposed to pass during a yellow flag. I thought that was kind of a cheap pass right there. But you guys can let me know in the comments whether you think that was legitimate or not. I didn't think it was, but looking at it now, I'm like, maybe it wasn't that bad. But there was a guy waving a yellow flag, and every type of racing that I've ever done, you're not supposed to be passing on a yellow flag. So once I saw that, I was going slow because that's caution. You don't want to be racing into the chute. And that rider in front of me right there just blasted through all the way to the chute. And I thought that was inappropriate, although it didn't matter so much because he's not in my class. He was actually on the 2-stroke class, but regardless, I still dropped 1 spot overall. I went from 11th to 12th with that final pass. But during this race, I had worked my way up to 6th overall, and I had 2nd place in my class. And but that was pretty early on in the race. Eventually, I started getting tired, and I would drop 2 more spots. So I got 4th in my class, and I got 12th overall. And I always say 11th overall because I don't really count that last pass. I still think it was pretty cheap. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is the Sand City 100. It was a great time. It was a really, really good race, and man, it's a lot of fun doing these. So I hope to start doing more of these. I'm gonna be doing more of them throughout the year. I'm gonna be looking for more enduro style races. The weather is getting warmer, so I'm gonna be up in the mountains doing races up there. And I'm going to be doing a lot of videos for you guys that are finally back to what I do normally. So that'll be nice. And I know a lot of my Patreon supporters have dropped out. I'm losing Patreon supporters like crazy. But those of you who stuck around and are still doing it, I really appreciate you guys. And I appreciate anybody who has done it, period, whether you dropped out or not. Just the fact that anybody would stop by my Patreon page and commit to donating every month is just amazing. So I really appreciate everybody who has ever done it. So you guys are awesome. Anyways, I will catch you on the next one. I'll start doing more videos of just rides, and yeah, we'll get back to what I do. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.